An Israeli airstrike hits Al-Aqsa Hospital, sheltering displaced in central Gaza, killing 3 and wounding 40. The United Nations announces the evacuation of patients from Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza amid evacuation orders. And Israel calls on residents of around 25 villages and towns in southern Lebanon to evacuate immediately. It is 7:50 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Q News. Let's start our bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Health authorities in Gaza reported that the Palestinian death toll from Israeli attacks has surpassed 42,200 since the conflict escalated on October 7, 2023. In the last 24 hours alone, Israeli operations in Gaza claimed 52 lives and left 128 people injured, bringing the total number of injured to nearly 98,500. Additionally, Israeli forces launched a drone strike on a Shati refugee camp west of Gaza City, killing at least 5 Palestinian children. An Israeli airstrike on Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza, has killed 3 people and wounded 40 others, targeting tents sheltering displaced Palestinians. Israel claims that the strike targeted individuals operating from a command center within the hospital compound, accusing Hamas of using civilian facilities for military purposes. However, Hamas has denied these allegations. The United Nations has announced the evacuation of patients from Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza to Al-Shifa Hospital. The operation, expected to take 12 hours, is currently underway. The director of the hospital confirmed that the UN has delivered fuel to support the facility. Earlier, Israel stated that its strikes on Gaza hospitals were aimed at tracking targets, adding that clear evacuation instructions had been issued in recent days, including for Kamal Adwan Hospital. Egypt's Attorney General, Councillor Mohammed Shawki Ayad, has condemned the violence against Palestinians in Gaza, including killings, displacement, starvation, and the prolonged siege, along with recent Israeli aggression against Lebanese territory. During the United Nations Conference on Transnational Organized Crime in Vienna, Ayad called for an immediate halt to crimes against Palestinians, stressing the international community's obligation to uphold their rights. He urged an end to ongoing aggression against civilians, advocated for an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, and emphasized the need to respect Lebanon's sovereignty. Russian ambassador to Cairo, Georgy Borisenko, stated that the killing of over 40,000 Palestinians in Gaza cannot be considered self-defense, emphasizing that Israel's actions amount to genocide that is intolerable. During an open dialogue at the Egyptian Press Syndicate, Borisenko expressed Russia's concerns over developments in the Middle East, stating that Israeli actions have exceeded self-defense. He emphasized the need to implement UN resolutions for a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, attributing Israel's aggression to unwavering U.S. support. And for more analysis, we now move to Riham in our newsroom. To you, Riham.
Thank you, Hela. To help us analyze the situation on the ground in Gaza after the latest Israeli airstrikes, we are joined from Bethlehem by the Fatah Movement Revolutionary Council member, Mohammed Al-Laham. Welcome and thank you for joining us here on Q. Firstly, could you tell us a bit about the challenges that the displaced Palestinians are facing now, that even their shelter, their tents near hospitals have become targets for airstrikes, specifically in the north?
Yes, what the Israeli occupation is doing in northern Gaza is an application of Netanyahu's personal view in this regard. It's even developed a form of general's plan. This so-called general's plan, that was some of it was linked to the Israeli media. It's based on making a siege and starving for months and weeks. Afterwards, the residents would leave northern Gaza to the south of Gaza. But it seems that this matter is accelerated, so this plan is changed from starvation to direct killing by this intensified striking and this great number of martyrs over the past few days, especially in Jabalia and Ben Ishela and the northern areas of Gaza. It also seems that the plan would include the north of Gaza, then inside the city of Gaza, so it means the whole area of the north of the strip. As we can see, this they target the hospitals in particular, so there would be no possibility for medication for the injured people. They also target the journalists. We here talk about tens of medical calibers, academic calibers, and we're also talking about more than 165 journalists, males and females, who died under the fire of the occupation since October 7th and until today, in a trial to hide and conceal the truth. So the Israeli occupation narrative would dominate. However, the whole world is fully aware, even if they are silent, but at least they are witnessing these massacres in North Gaza, especially in the north.
Sir, we've seen a pattern of airstrikes by the Israeli army on several hospitals, including Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir Balah. How does this fit into a larger pattern of targeting civilians and specifically medical infrastructure in Gaza? What do you think they're trying to achieve by doing this?
They try to create a state of fear bigger than the existent one. They try to show a model for this atrocity committed by the occupation that everyone has seen. Everyone saw the fire in the different departments of these hospitals in Gaza, focusing on northern Gaza and Deir Balah in particular. It's gradual, it never stops at a certain area. We have witnessed the killing in Rafah, Khan Yunis, and we have seen also manipulation by giving instructions and telling people that these areas are safe in north of Gaza and people can pass through. But in these days, yesterday and today, more than 10 people died in places that the Israeli army said that they are safe and everyone can move through. but manipulation is dominant here. Civilians and citizens were targeted in this area. Almost 10 people were killed in this so-called safe places. The main goal is the displacement of the residents of north of Gaza, generally to the middle and to the south. And we know very well that the southern area, especially the areas on the borders between Egypt and Palestine, known as Philadelphia Axis, including Rafah Cross Point, we know very well that the occupation army cut many spaces from this area to make it an isolating area. So there is a pressure of more than 2,150,000 citizens in Gaza Strip in a very small geographic area. This will make life very difficult and even impossible in all the normal and logical living, health, and educational considerations. The occupation works on sustaining this reality by evacuating the residents from the north of Gaza and to create a state of crowding of this population in a very small area.
As you said, sir, that these are attempts to, create difficult living conditions for the Palestinians, displacement after displacement. And now we've seen that the people are being moved from Kamal Adwan Hospital to Al-Shifa Hospital. So what challenges does the United Nations face when it comes to evacuating the patients from Kamal Adwan to Al-Shifa amidst the ongoing conflict?
The question, to be clear, even the United Nations is not able to perform any role in this regard. It's known since yesterday that there was a speech by Netanyahu in which he redirected the accusation to UN agencies, on top of them UNRWA. He described them as unwanted organization to work in all Palestine, not only in Gaza. The buildings that UNRWA used to operate from in Jerusalem were evacuated, and it said that these areas will be turned into settlements. Regarding the hospitals in Gaza, it's known that Al-Shifa Hospital was highly destroyed. Also, Kamal Adwan Hospital is highly destroyed. Before that, we witnessed the target of the Baptist Hospital. Hence, the best hospital in Gaza Strip operates only with from 15 to 20% of its normal operational capacity in the light of this siege, striking, and in the light of lack of funding and the supply of medicines and necessary medical equipment. Even the medical professionals, hundreds of them were martyrs. There are individual initiatives that we have witnessed. We have seen an Egyptian doctor over 24 hours. He have been conducting surgeries to the children and women in Gaza Strip without any stop. But these initiatives that are really valued and praised, but remain individual initiatives that wouldn't be suitable for the team or for the collective people who are being targeted in Gaza.
That was the Fatah Movement Revolutionary Council member, Mohammed Al-Laham. Thank you so much for joining us and for your valuable insights. Back to you, Hala.
Thank you very much, Riham. And now we move to the latest developments in Lebanon. The Lebanese Health Ministry has announced that the death toll from the ongoing Israeli attacks had risen to more than 2,300 since October of last year. That came accompanied by more than 10,600 others injured. The ministry added that the Israeli raids had resulted in 14 deaths and 63 injuries in southern Lebanon, as well as 10 deaths and 50 injuries in Nabatea. In addition, 3 people had been killed and 11 others had been wounded in Al-Baqa, with 13 injuries reported in Baalbek. Air raid sirens have echoed across northern Israel, followed by the sound of explosions. Earlier, Hezbollah claimed responsibility for an attack on the Israeli Golani Brigade camp in Binyamina in the Haifa district using a swarm of drones. Israeli military chief of staff Herzi Halevi has stated that Israel is in a state of war, describing the attack on the Golani Brigade base as severe and painful. During his visit to the base, Halevi confirmed that the military would continue fighting and training for what he called the next phase. The Israeli occupation forces have announced that they had intercepted 2 drones launched from Syria before they entered Israeli airspace. Israeli media also reported the interception of around 5 rockets launched from southern Lebanon towards the Sharon area north of Tel Aviv. Reports also said that sirens sounded in the Mirun area of the Upper Galilee and across dozens of Israeli sites near the northern border with Lebanon. The UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon stressed the importance of implementing UN Resolution 1701. Following her meeting with Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri, she affirmed that the UN is doing everything it can to help resolve the current crisis, an immediate ceasefire, and noted that the international organization is also working to meet humanitarian needs in Lebanon.
Challenges. And in order to defend our values.
The U.S. Department of Defense stated that Secretary Lloyd Austin, in a phone call with his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant, emphasized the importance of Israel taking all the necessary measures to ensure the safety of UNIFIL forces in Lebanon. Austin also highlighted the need to shift from military operations in Lebanon to diplomatic efforts to ensure civilian security as soon as possible. The Pentagon added that steps must be taken swiftly to address the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza.
I know that you're seeing reports of a significant strike in Beirut today. I spoke by phone earlier with my counterpart in Israel, Minister Gallant.
The European Union's Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell has asserted that the European Union condemns all Israeli attacks against the United Nations missions. Borrell added that such attacks against UN peacekeepers constitute a grave violation of international law and are totally unacceptable. He added that these attacks must stop immediately.
Los bombardeos han afectado las vías de comunicación con Siria. Los migrantes sirios los exiliados sirios están intentando volver a Siria.
In a troubling escalation of hostilities, Israeli occupation forces have launched a brazen attack on UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, once again violating international law.
Israeli occupation forces have once again violated international law with a brazen attack on UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon. Israeli tanks forcibly breached the gates of a UNIFIL post in Ramia near the Israeli border. In a blatant act of aggression, 2 tanks entered the compound, destroying the gate to demand that the base turn off its lights. Shortly after the aggression, nearby rounds were fired. releasing smoke that infiltrated the camp, causing 15 UN peacekeepers to suffer skin irritation and gastrointestinal issues. Israeli forces later claimed their actions were part of an evacuation effort for soldiers wounded by an anti-tank missile, despite having trespassed on UNIFIL territory. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned the assault, warning that attacks on peacekeepers could constitute war crimes under international law. He emphasized the urgent need for the full protection of UN personnel and property, calling the incident a flagrant violation of international treaties. This escalation comes amid ongoing Israeli aggression in southern Lebanon. Despite Israel's ground offensive, UNIFIL has refused demands to withdraw its peacekeeping forces. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's remarks that peacekeepers are hostages of Hezbollah have drawn strong rebuke, with Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati calling it another example of Israel's blatant disregard for international law. As tensions mount, international leaders are urging Israel to halt its violations of UNIFIL's mandate and respect the critical role that peacekeeping mission plays in preventing further destabilization of the region.
Israeli occupation forces have called on residents of around 25 villages and towns in southern Lebanon to evacuate immediately. This comes as Hezbollah announced that it had repelled an attempt by Israeli occupation forces to infiltrate southern Lebanon. They targeted the occupation forces with artillery and launched rockets at other military movements. And for more updates on the latest in Africa, we move to Selma in our newsroom. To you, Selma.
Thank you, Hela. And now we move on to the latest developments in Africa. The Democratic Republic of Congo has cancelled a licensing round for 27 oil blocks originally launched in 2022. Hydrocarbons Minister Amy Sakombi Molendo cited reasons for the cancellation, including late submissions, irregular offers, and insufficient competition. He announced plans to relaunch the process soon, but did not specify a timeline. The licensing round had faced criticism from environmental groups and some Western partners due to the location. The ruling Frelimo party in Mozambique has secured a win in the capital, Maputo, with its candidate Daniel Chapo receiving 54% of the vote, according to the Election Commission. The 10th vote, held Wednesday, also saw independent candidate Venancio Mondlane gather 34% and Renamos Osofumo made 9.6%. Outgoing President Filipe Nyusi is stepping down after 2 terms, with the final election results expected in 2 weeks. The Nigeria Football Federation, NFF, plans to fly the national team home after enduring over 15 hours of inhumane treatment at an abandoned Libyan airport ahead of a 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier. Players led by Captain William Troost Ekong have refused to play the match, citing safety concerns. And now we're going to move back to Hela in the studio.
Thank you very much, Salma. And that brings us to the end of our bulletin, the political segment. But here's what we have been covering. An Israeli airstrike hits Al-Aqsa Hospital, sheltering displaced people in central Gaza, killing 3 and wounding 40. The UN announces the evacuation of patients from Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza amid evacuation orders. And Israel calls on residents of around 25 villages and towns in southern Lebanon to evacuate immediately. And this brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Remember to stay updated by following Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNews EG for the latest developments. Thank you very much for being with us.